You know what's weird? Some people just don't. They don't doom scroll. They're not constantly refreshing their feeds. They're not lying in bed at 2 a.m. reading about every crisis happening on the planet. They check their phone, put it down, and then, this is the crazy part, they just go on with their day. And you might think these people are ignorant, naive, living in some privileged bubble where they don't have to care about what's happening in the world. But here's the thing, most of them aren't. They're just wired differently. Or more accurately, they've learned to wire themselves differently. So who are these people? What do they know that we don't? And more importantly, can we become them? Let's find out. Meet Sarah. She's a teacher. She cares deeply about social issues, climate change, politics, all of it. She donates. She volunteers. She votes in every election. But she doesn't doom scroll. Here's her secret, she decided. She sat down one day and made an actual decision about when she would engage with news and when she wouldn't. She checks the news twice a day. Once in the morning with coffee, once in the evening before dinner. 15 minutes each time, from actual news sources, not social media. And then she stops. Not because she doesn't care, but because she realised something most of us haven't. Caring and scrolling are not the same thing. She told me, I can care about climate change without reading 17 articles about it before breakfast. The caring is what I do with my time and money and choices. The scrolling was just anxiety cosplaying as activism. The people who don't doom scroll, they've figured out that information has a point of diminishing returns. After you know the basic facts, more scrolling doesn't make you more informed. It just makes you more anxious. They've set boundaries, and they've discovered something radical. The world doesn't fall apart when you're not watching it. Then there's Marcus. He's a community organizer. His whole job is literally about solving problems in the world, and he barely looks at social media. When I asked him why, he said, because I'm too busy actually doing things. Here's what he's figured out. There's an inverse relationship between scrolling about problems and solving them. The more time you spend consuming content about issues, the less time you spend doing anything about them. And worse, the scrolling tricks you into thinking you're doing something. You read an article, you share a post, you argue in the comments, and your brain gives you a little hit of good job, you participated. But you didn't. You just scrolled. Marcus spends his time organising food drives, attending city council meetings, talking to neighbours. Real, tangible action. He told me about a community meeting he attended about affordable housing. Really important stuff. People's homes were at stake, and he looked around the room and realised none of these people were on Twitter. The people fighting for change weren't the people with the loudest online voices. They were the people who showed up, who did the boring work, who made phone calls and knocked on doors. And that's when it clicked for him. Online outrage feels like action, but it's not. It's performance. Real change happens offline. The people who don't doom scroll have often replaced consumption with creation. They've realised that doing one real thing is more valuable than reading about 100 things you can't control. Let me introduce you to Jamie. She's a graphic designer, mum of 2, deals with anxiety. She deleted Twitter 3 years ago, Instagram 6 months ago. She still has her phone, but it's boring now. She calls it making my phone stupid again. No news apps, no social media, just texts, calls, maps and music. That's it. And she says it's changed her life. I didn't realise how much of my brain was just occupied. Like there was always this background hum of other people's emergencies, other people's opinions, other people's problems, and I kept telling myself I needed to stay informed, but really I was just staying stressed. Now when she picks up her phone, there's nothing to scroll, so she puts it back down, and then she's just here. With her kids, with her work, with her own thoughts. The people who don't doom scroll have often discovered something the rest of us have forgotten. Boredom is not an emergency. You don't need to fill every spare moment with information. Your brain actually needs those empty spaces. That's where thinking happens, where creativity happens, where you actually process your life instead of just consuming everyone else's. After Jamie deleted social media, something weird started happening. She started noticing things. The pattern on the tile floor at the grocery store, the way the light came through the windows in the afternoon, the specific way her daughter laughed when she was really delighted by something. Little things, tiny things, things that were always there but she'd been too distracted to see. She said, "Turns out, my life is actually pretty interesting when I'm paying attention to it instead of everyone else's." Here's David, retired journalist, spent 40 years in newsrooms, and he doesn't follow the news cycle anymore. I know. Wild, right? He says, when you work in news, you learn something pretty quickly. Most of what feels urgent isn't. Most of what feels like breaking news will be irrelevant in a week, And the actually important stuff? That unfolds slowly. You don't need to watch it every hour. David taught me about news half-life, how long a story stays relevant. Most social media outrage has a half-life of about 48 hours. Something feels like the end of the world on Monday, and by Wednesday everyone's moved on to the next crisis. But our brains don't know that. In the moment, everything feels equally critical. The algorithm makes sure of it. David checks in on major news once a week now, reads long-form articles, actually thinks about things, and he says he's more informed now than when he was checking constantly. When you're always in the stream, you're just reacting. You can't see patterns, you can't think critically, you're just drowning in now. He realized that the constant stream of information wasn't actually helping him understand anything. It was just making him react. Over and over and over. So he stopped. He started reading books about history instead of news about today, long essays instead of hot takes, and slowly he started understanding the world better. Because here's what he learned. The news tells you what happened, but it rarely tells you why. It rarely gives you context. It rarely helps you understand the deeper patterns. For that, you need space. You need time. You need to step back from the constant now. The people who don't doom scroll have figured out that being informed doesn't mean knowing everything as it happens. It means understanding what actually matters and ignoring the rest. And then there's Lisa. She's a therapist, which you'd think would mean she's got it all figured out. Nope. She doom scrolled like the rest of us, until she didn't. What changed? She got honest about what she was really doing. I was doom scrolling because it made me feel safe, like if I just knew enough I could protect myself from bad things happening. But that's not how life works. Bad things happen whether you're scrolling or not. All the scrolling was doing was making me feel like I had control when I didn't. This is the hard one. The people who don't doom scroll have often accepted something the rest of us are running from. You cannot prepare for every bad thing. You can't anxiety your way into safety. You can't scroll your way into certainty. The world is unpredictable. Terrible things happen. And knowing about them in real time doesn't actually protect you. It just makes you feel terrible in real time. Lisa says, I had to grieve the illusion of control. I had to accept that I'm vulnerable, and no amount of information changes that. And once I accepted it, I didn't need the scrolling anymore. What scrolling does is make you more afraid. It trains your brain to see the world as more dangerous than it actually is. Because you're constantly consuming the worst things happening anywhere on Earth, and your brain starts to believe that's normal, that's everywhere, that's coming for you. But it's not. Most of the world, most of the time, is actually okay. Not perfect, not problem-free. But okay, you're probably safe right now. The people you love are probably safe right now. And if something changes, you'll deal with it then. Not now. Then. The people who don't doom scroll have made peace with uncertainty. They've stopped trying to manage the entire world through their phones. So what do all these people have in common? They're not special. They're not enlightened. They're not living in ignorance. They've just figured out a few things. 1. Information is not the same as understanding. You can know about 100 crises and understand none of them, or you can deeply understand 3 things and actually do something about them. 2. Caring is measured by action, not consumption. Reading about problems doesn't solve them. Doing things solves them. 3. Your attention is finite, and where you put it matters more than you think. Every hour you spend scrolling is an hour you're not spending on your actual life. 4. The world doesn't need you to witness every tragedy. It needs you to be okay enough to help with the one in front of you. And 5. You're allowed to choose presence over panic. These aren't revolutionary ideas, they're actually pretty simple. But in a world that's designed to keep you scrolling, keep you anxious, keep you engaged, they're also pretty radical. Because the system doesn't want you to log off. It wants you scrolling. Always scrolling. Because that's how it makes money. Your attention is the product, and the more anxious you are, the more you scroll. Your doom scrolling is someone else's profit margin. The people who don't doom scroll have figured this out. They've realized they're being used, and they've decided to stop participating. Here's what I've learned from talking to people who don't doom scroll. It's not that they don't care, it's that they care differently. They care through boundaries, through action, through presence, through choosing what they let into their minds and what they don't. They've stopped believing that staying plugged in 24/7 makes them better people. They've realized it just makes them exhausted people. There's this moment that a lot of them talk about. This turning point where they realised something had to change. For Sarah, it was when she snapped at her students because she'd stayed up too late reading about a crisis she couldn't do anything about. For Marcus, it was realising he'd spent 3 hours arguing with strangers online instead of calling his mum. For Jamie, it was when her daughter asked her a question 3 times and she didn't hear because she was scrolling. For David, it was looking at his screen time report and realising he'd spent more time on Twitter that week than talking to his wife. For Lisa, it was a panic attack triggered by reading too many terrible things in a row. Little moments, personal moments, where they realised that this thing they thought was keeping them informed was actually stealing their lives. And they decided to stop. So here's my question for you. What if you became one of them? What if you set boundaries with your phone? What if you replace scrolling with doing? What if you let yourself be bored sometimes? What if you accepted that you can't control everything? The people who don't doom scroll aren't superhuman. They're just humans who decided to stop. And you can too. Not because you don't care about the world, but because you do. And you know that the world doesn't need more exhausted, anxious people scrolling through catastrophe and feeling helpless. It needs people who are present, rested, clear, ready to actually do something with the one life they have. You don't have to quit everything today. You can start small, really small. Maybe today you just notice. Notice when you pick up your phone. Notice what you're feeling right before you start scrolling. Notice how you feel after. Maybe tomorrow you wait. Just 10 seconds before you unlock your phone. Give yourself a moment to ask, do I actually want to do this right now? Or is this just a habit? Maybe next week you pick one time of day where your phone stays in another room. Just 1 hour. During dinner maybe, or first thing in the morning. Small steps, simple boundaries. Because here's the secret, the people who don't doom scroll didn't get there overnight. They didn't just wake up one day with perfect phone habits. They built it. Slowly. One choice at a time. And every time they chose presence over scrolling, it got a little easier. Every time they chose action over consumption, they got a little stronger. Until one day, they realised. They weren't doom scrollers anymore. They were just people, living their lives, paying attention to what mattered. Here's the final thing. The people who don't doom scroll, they're happier, they sleep better, they're less anxious, they have better relationships, they get more done, not because they're ignoring reality, but because they're actually living in it. Because reality isn't in your phone, it's right here, right now, in the room you're sitting in, the people around you, the work in front of you, the life you're building. And you can't build a life when you're scrolling through everyone else's, so maybe today is the day you join them. The people who don't doom scroll. Not forever, not perfectly, just today. Put down the phone, look up, be here. The world will still be there when you check back in. But you'll be different. You'll be present. And that changes everything.